Welcome to Higher Education Marketing Institute. Today, we're unpacking what it really means to move from answer engines to enrollments. If you're feeling like your homepage just lost its job as the college front door, you're not alone. The real first impression happens in an AI-generated answer, often before a prospective student ever lands on your site.
And the stakes are real. According to OHO's latest research, 40% of actively researching or recently enrolled students used AI for college discovery. Of those, nearly as many started with an AI chatbot as with a traditional search engine. But here's the kicker. 79% of those students still visit a college website after using AI, but they are coming to validate, not to discover. So if your content isn't clear, consistent, and instantly trustworthy, you're already behind.
Let's start with that discovery moment. The HEMI article this week calls AI the new discovery layer. Prospective students meet your institution in answer engines, ChatGPT, Google's AI overviews, even TikTok answers, long before they reach your carefully curated homepage. You have to win twice. First, the AI citation, then the students' trust when they check your site.
That's a big shift for most marketing and enrollment teams. Historically, you could control the narrative on your homepage and program pages. Now, AI is synthesizing your data with whatever else it finds. If your outcomes, costs, and differentiators aren't crystal clear, AI might just cite a third-party site, or worse, a competitor.
And clarity is the theme. The article breaks down a precision content playbook. Map every common student question to one authoritative page. Use atomic facts and tables. Keep sitemaps clean, and make key data downloadable for machines to cite. The goal is to be the source AI trusts. Otherwise, you're invisible at the top of the funnel.
It's not just about visibility, though. OHO's research points out that most institutions don't have a discovery problem. They have an interpretation problem. If your program details, costs, and outcomes are scattered across different sites, catalogs, or updated pages, AI can't confidently summarize you. That's how errors and missed opportunities creep in.
Exactly. OHO recommends defining clear ownership for high-stakes information. Cost, admissions requirements, deadlines, outcomes. Establish a single source of truth. Make sure your validation pages answer student questions directly, using plain, scannable language. If students or AI need a scavenger hunt to find tuition or program outcomes, you're losing both audiences.
It's a governance challenge, too. In decentralized environments, content gets fragmented. Some program pages are up to date, others are years old, and nobody can say which is authoritative. That's why OHO says content readiness, not AI adoption, is the real readiness gap. If your data is inconsistent, AI will look elsewhere.
There's a practical side to all this. The HEMI article gives a checklist. Map each student question to one page. Use named anchors for navigation. Mirror key data in downloadable formats. And consolidate duplicates. It's not glamorous, but it's the foundation for being cited by AI and trusted by students.
And don't overlook design. Stamats Insights emphasizes that teens scheme program pages like billboards. If a paragraph fills a phone screen, it's too dense. You need 3 clear differentiators at the top. Why your school? Why this program? And what makes it different? Hook them fast, then route them to deeper details only if they're interested.
That's a big change from the old encyclopedia-style program pages. Now, the first job is to stop the scroll on mobile. If you led with a wall of text, you're invisible to Gen Z. The top 3 selling points should be unmistakable, and everything else comes later in the journey.
But let's not pretend this is just a content or UX project. The EVE article on graduate lead generation lays out a real risk. Over-reliance on any single channel exposes you to sudden drops, whether from AI, platform changes, or market shifts. Their advice? Cap any single lead source at 50 to 60%, diversify channels, and regularly audit your AI visibility.
That's especially important with the 17% decline in new international graduate enrollment from 2024 to 2025. As EVE reports, when the market gets stealthier and more competitive, you can't afford to have your pipeline dominated by one source. If Google changes its algorithm or AI answer engines shift, you need a resilient mix.
And EVE's framework is practical. First, assess your AI visibility and lead risk. Are your programs showing up accurately in AI-generated answers? Next, diversify. Don't let paid search or any one aggregator drive the majority of your leads. Finally, measure what actually enrolls, not just what clicks. That means tracking channels all the way to applications, admits, and yield.
That's a recurring theme across this week's research. HEMI, OHO, EB, and even EvoLLLution all argue for shifting from vanity metrics, like traffic or impressions, to real enrollment outcomes. Qualified demand, applications, campus visits, and conversion rates are the new North Stars. If you're still reporting on traffic alone, you're missing the point.
Let's talk about behavioral signals. EvoLLLution's interview with Joshua Charles at Rutgers points out that much of the awareness and consideration process now happens in AI-driven environments, before a student ever shows up in your CRM. So, the job is to spot intent earlier, using behavioral insights from LMS, registration, and even chat interactions to personalize outreach.
And that's not just a technology problem, it's a leadership challenge. Charles argues that institutions need alignment across marketing, IT, academic programs, and student services to define what outcomes they want and what data actually matters. Collecting data for its own sake leads nowhere. Every signal should support a real decision or action.
Persona-based content optimization is a good example. AI can help you identify distinct audience segments within each program, different motivations, goals, and decision factors. Then you can tailor content, nurture flows, and follow up to meet those needs, rather than blasting generic messages to everyone.
But we should acknowledge the risk. More data and more AI-driven personalization can lead to complexity and even bias. That's why EB and EvoLLLution both call for regular audits of your models, your messaging, and your outcomes. If you're not checking for bias or unintended gaps, you're just automating your blind spots.
And let's not forget international. David D. Maria at UMBC, in his EvoLLLution interview, says the future of international enrollment isn't just about volume. It's about student-centered value, flexible delivery, and campus-wide alignment. Institutions that treat global enrollment as a long-term investment, pairing strategic recruitment with personalized support and career readiness, will outlast those chasing quick wins.
That means moving beyond the old model of treating international students as a solution to shortfalls. Instead, it's about building authentic connections, offering hybrid or online options, and aligning marketing, admissions, and academics around clear career outcomes.
And the same logic applies domestically. Students want to see value, outcomes, and support at every touchpoint. If your messaging leads with campus life or prestige alone, you risk irrelevance, especially with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, who expect transparency and personalization by default.
So, what does all this mean for the day-to-day work of higher ed marketing and enrollment leaders? First, treat your website as a structured data feed for AI, not just a digital brochure. Second, prioritize clarity, consistency, and canonical sources for every high-stakes fact. Third, measure success by enrollment and student outcomes, not just digital vanity metrics.
And fourth, keep the human touch at the center. AI can shape discovery, but human conversation still closes the loop. Fast, personal follow-up is what turns interest into applications and, ultimately, enrollments. If your nurture flows aren't personal and responsive, you're leaving yield on the table.
Before we wrap up, let's call out a few controversial but evidence-backed ideas from this week's sources. First, homepages are losing relevance. The real discovery happens in answer engines, and your homepage is now about validation, not introduction.
Second, dense program pages can actually hurt engagement. Teens want billboard clarity, not academic treatises. Lead with differentiators, keep it mobile first, and save the deep dive for later.
Third, if more than 60% of your inquiries come from one channel, you're at risk. Diversify now, before you're forced to buy a platform or algorithm change.
And finally, publishing raw, machine-readable outcomes and cost data. Think downloadable JSON and clear tables might outperform your next brand campaign for AI-driven awareness. It's not glamorous, but it's what the new front door demands.
If you take nothing else from today, remember this: AI is now the first handshake, but trust, clarity, and human support are what move students from interest to enrollment. The institutions that combine machine-ready content with authentic, student-centered follow-up will own the next wave of growth.
And if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're in good company. As Oho puts it, most institutions don't have an AI problem. They have a content readiness problem. Start with your highest stakes facts, audit for clarity and consistency, and build from there. The rest is iteration.
That's our show for this week. For more actionable research, check out Higher Education Marketing Institute, OHO, EB, Stamats, and EvoLLLution. And if you're ready to future-proof your content, start with one page, one question, one clear answer, then scale up.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back with more grounded, practical insights to help you navigate the new rules of higher ed marketing. Until then, keep your content sharp, your signals clear, and your follow-up human. And if you find a paragraph that fills a phone screen, you know what to do.
Let's pick up where we left off and dig deeper into what this actually looks like in practice, especially for teams that don't have a dedicated digital operations lead or a six-figure content budget. The HEMI and OHO frameworks both emphasize that you don't need to overhaul everything at once. Start with the highest impact, highest risk information, cost, outcomes, admissions requirements, and work outward from there. It's about prioritizing the pages and facts that students and AI care about most.
There's a temptation to treat this as a one-and-done project, but content readiness is really an ongoing operational discipline. OHO's research highlights how decentralized governance creates fragmentation, different departments and vendors updating pages on their own schedules, often without a clear owner. That's how you end up with 3 versions of tuition, 5 lists of program outcomes, and a scholarship page that hasn't been touched since pre-pandemic. If you're listening and thinking, that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Almost every institution we've seen struggles with this.
And the solution isn't more meetings or more layers of approval. OHO recommends establishing a single source of truth for each critical fact. One page, one owner, one update schedule. Then, make those facts easy to find and easy to cite, both for humans and for machines. That might mean moving tuition tables out of PDFs and into structured, accessible HTML. It might mean creating a data index or a downloadable JSON file for outcomes. These are small technical shifts, but they have outsized impact on both AI visibility and student trust.
I'll challenge that a bit. Some teams hear structured data and JSON and immediately think this is a job for IT or web development, not marketing. But the reality is, content teams need to drive the process. Marketing knows what questions students are asking, what information is missing, and where the pain points are. IT can help with the technical implementation, but if content strategy isn't leading, you end up with technically sound pages that still don't answer the right questions. The most successful teams we've seen are the ones where marketing and IT actually work side by side, not in silos.
That's a fair point, and it's echoed in the EB guidance on graduate lead generation. They recommend cross-functional teams for auditing AI visibility and channel risk. It's not just about marketing or admissions. Academics, IT, and even finance need to be at the table. For example, if international enrollment is down 17% year over year, as EB points out, that's not just a marketing problem. It's a signal that your value proposition, messaging, and support structures might all need to be revisited.
And the international piece is getting more complex, not less. David D. Maria at UMBC notes that international students increasingly expect personalized support and clear career outcomes. Institutions that treat global enrollment as a transactional pipeline, just chasing headcount, are going to struggle. The ones that invest in peer-to-peer engagement, tailored career guidance, and cultural fluency will be the ones that sustain growth. That means marketing needs to partner with career services, student life, and academic advising to deliver on those promises.
Let's get more concrete. What does a billboard-style program page actually look like in the wild? Stamats Insights lays it out. 3 scannable differentiators at the top, each with a single sentence or icon, followed by a clear call to action. For example, 100% job placement rate, hybrid learning options, and direct clinical experience. Each links to a deeper page for those who want more detail. The rest of the content is broken up with short, mobile-friendly sections. No walls of text. If your program page still looks like a PDF from 2012, it's time to rethink.
But I'll add that there's a risk of oversimplifying. Some faculty and administrators push back, worried that cutting details means dumbing down the academic value. The answer isn't to hide rigor or outcomes. It's to layer the journey, hook with clarity, then offer depth for those who want it. Here is where named anchors and clear navigation come in. Let students jump straight to requirements. faculty bios, or research opportunities as they move down the funnel. The point isn't to be shallow, but to be accessible and intuitive.
And this isn't just about undergrad. The EVE article on graduate-led generation is clear. Graduate students are even more outcome-focused. They want transparent data on job placement, alumni networks, and program ROI. If your content buries that info, or spreads it across multiple pages, you're handing an advantage to competitors who make it obvious. EVE's recommendation to cap any single channel at 50-60% of your pipeline is a safeguard against sudden shocks, but it's also a nudge to review your messaging and mix every quarter, not just once a year.
And let's address the elephant in the room. AI answer engines are already deciding which programs get shortlisted. If your institution isn't showing up in those answers, or if the information is outdated, you're not even in the consideration set. That's why On the Beachfront, from HEMI, argues for research-grade content, authoritative, citation-ready, and structured for both humans and machines. Treat every high-stakes page like a definitive answer, not a marketing brochure. Use schema, cite sources, and surface third-party validations like accreditation or rankings where possible.
That's a big shift for teams used to treating SO as an afterthought. Schema, canonical tags, and structured tables aren't just for the web team. They are now core to enrollment marketing. And, as HEMI points out, the metric that matters is no longer traffic alone, but share of voice in AI answers and downstream conversion, inquiries, applications, and enrollments. If your dashboards still celebrate page views but ignore whether you're cited in AI summaries, it's time to recalibrate.
This brings us to the question of measurement. One of the most actionable recommendations from both EVE and EvoLLLution is to track every channel all the way through the funnel, not just to inquiry, but to application, admit, and yield. That means tying together CRM data, website analytics, and behavioral signals from LMS or chat interactions. It's not easy, and it requires cross-team collaboration, but it's the only way to know what's actually driving enrollment, not just clicks.
And let's be honest, most institutions are still struggling to do this well. The typical CRM setup is optimized for admissions, not for marketing attribution. But as Joshua Charles at Rutgers points out, you need to look beyond the students already in your system. AI-driven discovery means a growing share of intent signals are happening off-site, before a prospect ever fills out a form. That's why behavioral insights, like which questions are being asked in chat, or what content is being consumed anonymously, are becoming critical for early outreach and personalized nurture flows.
And that's where persona-based content optimization comes in. AI can help you identify not just demographic segments, but intent-based personas, career switchers, first-gen students, international applicants, and more. The key is to build content journeys that reflect those real motivations and questions, rather than assuming everyone wants the same message. For example, a working adult looking at a graduate program cares about flexibility and ROI, while a high school senior might prioritize campus experience or peer community. Tailor your follow-up accordingly.
But let's not lose sight of the risk. More data and more personalization can mean more room for error, or for bias to creep in. Regular audits of your data models and nurture flows, as EVE and EvoLLLution both recommend, are essential. That means checking for equity in who gets what message, and reviewing outcomes by segment. If your AI is reinforcing old patterns or missing new opportunities, you're just automating your blind spots.
And there's a people side to this. Even the best AI-driven nurture flow can't replace the value of a fast, personal response when a student reaches out. HEMI's playbook is clear. AI shapes discovery, but human conversation still closes the loop. That means training your admissions staff to follow up quickly, answer nuanced questions, and offer support that feels individualized. If your team is slow to respond, or if every reply feels like a template, you're going to lose yield, even if your content and AI visibility are perfect.
Let's circle back to the measurement theme. HEMI, EVE, and OHO are all aligned. Traffic is a vanity metric now. What matters is qualified demand, application lift, campus visits, yield, and ultimately, enrolled students. That means building dashboards that show the full funnel, not just the top. It also means being willing to cut spend from a channel, even a top performer, if it starts to dominate your pipeline. As EVE puts it, cap any channel at 50-60% to avoid systemic risk.
And don't forget about organic social and student voices. Trust AI and personalization, from HEMI, highlights that paid media can't buy trust at scale. Consistent, authentic student-generated content, whether on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, compounds credibility in the background. If your content strategy is all brand voice and no student voice, you're missing a key trust signal for both AI and human audiences.
That's especially true for Gen Alpha, who are growing up with conversational interfaces and peer recommendations as default. If your digital experience is still optimized for desktop or formal press releases, you're not meeting students where they are. Mobile first, conversational, and visually engaging content is quickly becoming table stakes, not a nice to have.
Let's challenge one more assumption, that more content is always better. Own the Beachfront makes the case that, in an AI-first SERP, fewer, deeper, research-grade pages may actually outperform a high-volume content factory. Churning out lookalike pages just makes you invisible. Instead, invest in authoritative, well-structured answers that can serve as the definitive source, both for AI and for prospective students.
And that means making tough choices about what to update, what to consolidate, and what to retire. Not every page deserves to survive a migration or redesign. As the HEM article on content migration points out, prioritize assets that drive enrollment, program pages, admissions, request information forms, application guidance, and funding content. If your migration plan treats a 5-year-old news article the same as your top converting program page, you're wasting resources and risking enrollment paths.
Which brings us to the operational side, content operations, governance, and continuous improvement. The most effective institutions aren't the ones with the flashiest homepage, but the ones with a clear plan for keeping high-stakes content current and consistent. That means regular reviews, clear ownership, and a willingness to iterate based on what's working, and what isn't. If you're still relying on annual audits or ad hoc updates, you're going to fall behind as AI and student expectations evolve.
And don't underestimate the value of technical health. The AI website grader from Search Influence, for example, scores sites on content structure, structured data, technical health, and on-page SAR, all weighted to show exactly where to focus. It's not about chasing a perfect score, but about identifying actionable gaps, missing schema, slow load times, weak internal linking, or unclear headings. Fixing these isn't glamorous, but it's what makes you visible to both AI and human searchers.
Let's give a practical example. Say you run a graduate business program. Your old site has a generic program description, tuition buried in a PDF, and no mention of career outcomes on the landing page. An AI answer engine is likely to skip you in favor of a competitor who lists job placement data, tuition tables, and faculty bios in structured, machine-readable formats. If you want to show up in those answers, you need to rework your content, starting with the most asked questions and building out from there.
And if you're worried about the workload, remember, you don't have to fix everything at once. The best results come from starting with a single high-impact program or page, mapping out the student questions, and building a model you can scale. Use the data from that pilot to advocate for more resources and to show the impact on both AI visibility and enrollment outcomes.
As we wrap, let's recap the most actionable takeaways for enrollment and marketing leaders. First, treat every high-stakes fact, cost, outcomes, requirements, as a product, not just a web page. Assign ownership, keep it current, and make it easy to find. Second, design for both skimmers and machines. Lead with clarity, structure with schema, and use downloadable data formats where possible. Third, measure what matters. Enrollments, applications, yield, not just traffic or rankings. Fourth, diversify your channels and regularly audit for risk. And finally, keep the human touch at the center. Fast, personal follow-up is still the most powerful conversion tool you have.
And don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions. If your homepage isn't driving discovery, shift its role to validation. If your program pages are dense, break them up. If your pipeline is concentrated in one channel, diversify before you're forced to. The institutions that move fastest on these fronts, clarity, structure, governance, and student-centered value, will be the ones that thrive as AI, student behavior, and the market keep changing.
That's the real lesson from this week's research. AI is the new front door, but it's only as good as the content, structure, and operational discipline behind it. If you want to win in an answer engine world, Focus on what students and machines both need: clarity, trust, and fast, helpful follow-up. The rest is just noise.